Kate.
I'm Ebong.
And I'm Sonia.
And today we are dishing with you from Rira Irish Pub, located at 4931 Elm Street in Bethesda.
And our guest today is Stephen Gaffney, who's the author of Honesty Sells. And actually, this is your third book.
Yes.
And the title is How to Make More Money and Increase Business Profit. So I understand the importance of being honest, but how does this translate into the business setting?
Well, the key to long-term business success is about being upfront and honest. Look what happened to our country last year. A lot of firms that even survived the Depression, they survived a couple world wars, was brought down because of their lack of honesty and their business practices.
Well, are you really telling us anything new? I mean, honesty,
Geez, thanks.
honesty. But no, I mean, why is this so important to you? Why is this something that you have written 3 books about?
Well, if you think about it, look at whether it's our personal relationships or our business relationships, the key to making all that go is our ability to be upfront, and actually also the key is to get other people to be upfront with us. I mean, have you ever had somebody lie to you in a business or a personal sense?
Oh, yeah, sure.
And I'm sure that negatively affected your relationship with
Absolutely.
them. And if it's in the business sense, you probably never wanted to do business with them again. That is one of the keys of Honesty Sells. You know, when most people think about selling, they don't associate the word honesty. But when we really look at people who are very effective at selling, they are upfront, and that is the key. So that book is all about how to make that happen.
Do we really think that they're up front, or do we just as consumers expect that the salesperson isn't being honest with us?
Well, I do think that a lot of people have been burned so often that they actually do think that their salespeople are not upfront often. And that's unfortunate for all those salespeople who are very honest and upfront. So because of history and often the way people have come across before, we've been burned. And if we're burned, we're going to be very, very cautious. So then the key is, how do you get the client or potential client to be upfront? And there's a lot of strategies in the book, Honesty Sells, all about how to do that.
Can you give us an example of that? Because to further Kate's point, I completely agree. I think we are ingrained and trained to be reserved when we're being sold something, because we automatically assume we're being swindled. So how do you, just a brief example as to how you think one who's in the sales arena, how they can actually use one of your techniques to...
Well, one of the things is to talk about this, and actually you cannot control whether other people are honest with us, but you can create an environment where they're more likely to be upfront with us. And one of the #1 reasons why people lie to us is fear. Fear of retribution, fear of it going wrong, fear of hurt feelings. But in a sales capacity, let's face it, why we're scared to be upfront with a salesperson is we're afraid if we give them all the information, we might get burned. For example, if somebody said, well, Ebong, what's your budget for a particular project? And you say, well, yeah, I can't spend a dime over this. We're afraid that that salesperson is going to create a budget.
For that maximum number.
Exactly. So we're naturally cautious. So what can a salesperson do is talk about it and say, look, I'm not trying to burn your budget, but what I'm trying to do is actually give you the best I can for the amount of dollars that you have to spend. So what I am going to do is try to put together a proposal that is within your budget, and you can actually go through it and we can pick it apart from there. But the key is to have this type of honest dialogue. The worst thing that we can do is pretend it's not going on and then try to avoid it, because that's never going to work.
That's a really good point, because when I think about that, what's your budget, I always lowball it, because I'm like,
Oh,
they're going to go
everybody
there.
does.
I got $1.
I don't have any money. Can you give it to me for free?
Right, exactly. But I never looked at it from the point of the salesperson of, oh, I see what you're looking for. Let me give you something that gets to that. And if somebody were to, if I said $1,500, and then they were like, oh, good, $1,499, I'd be like, ugh. But it's because they're trying to give me my needs for my price. So that I've never thought about it that way. That you've changed my life. I love it. I love these books. Oh.
Well, you know what? Well, thank you. Actually, well, I think the interview's over. No, no. But you know what? Something else that we can do is actually good salespeople ask a lot of probing questions. Have you ever walked in a situation where a salesperson acts like they know you, and they actually don't even listen to anything that you have to say? I mean, whatever the feeling is, we don't have a good feeling towards them. So one of the keys that we outline in Honesty Sells is the ability to actually ask probing questions, not like a prosecuting attorney.
Right.
No offense to any attorneys out there.
You don't want the customer to feel like they have to justify themselves either, right? Okay.
And the key is to actually ask probing questions, and that is a good way to start an honest dialogue. And then if you sense tension, talk about it. You know, that's quite often what happens that works well in the business sense, but it also works well in the personal sense. Because let's face it, most of us have been burned in our personal lives with the same extent, where somebody was not honest and upfront with us. And so then we're cautious with other people. Same type of thing. Probing, getting to know people, talking about the elephant in the room, all of those strategies can make a world of difference.
Well, I know that your book is about sales, but I want to talk about honesty in terms of relationships. We were just talking about that a little bit. When you're among friends, do you really want them to be honest, or do you want them to be nice?
Well, what do you
Which
want?
is more important? I mean, I think everyone would say they want honesty, and then we get our feelings hurt.
No, I
And
want honesty. I want straight out brutal honesty.
Well, I know that you're also
Yeah,
you do a lot of motivational speaking. You talk about this.
Yes.
You talk about honesty in speeches a lot. So I'm sure this question is asked a lot of you.
It is.
You know, what do? We say we want honesty. If you're Sony, you say you want honesty. But I think I may just want people to be nice to me.
Well, then often I would ask the question, well, how's that working for you?
Yeah, probably not that well.
Not to put you on the spot, but often what happens, and coming from your perspective, is that we get scared. We get scared of honesty. And what's more is we actually can train people to lie to us. Here's an easy example. Have you ever had somebody ask you, let me have some honest feedback? And you give them some honest feedback that they don't like, and they flip out on you.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Next time you say, I don't think I want to go there.
Yeah.
Well, what happens in business sense and also in personal lives, in both the business and the personal aspect, we can actually train people to lie to us by the way we come across in such a defensive manner
Right.
that somebody says, you know what, next time I'm never going there. So the key question is, if we want honesty, are we prepared to really hear it?
Like when you ask, does this make me look fat? And you make that face.
You know what often people ask me, they say, well, if I was up front with my wife or my girlfriend or somebody about how she looked, they'd never want to talk to me again, or I'd be in the doghouse for sure. And I often ask this question, well, how often do you say how much your wife looks great or your girlfriend looks great? How often do you love and appreciate her? And quite often it's because we don't do the balance. People can hear really difficult messages if they also hear the positive message. Sometimes people say, well, I'm honest and people don't like it. But those are also the same people that forget to say the good parts. And if we've all been in situations where if the only thing that ever comes out of somebody's mouth is something negative, after a while you're like,
You don't
forget
wanna
it.
hear it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't want to go there.
And I think we all have a personal responsibility to the words that come out of our mouths. So as it relates, I don't think being honest and nice have to be exclusive.
I agree.
I think
I agree.
they're related. And
Yes.
so we all have a responsibility as to how we interact with people. So as we know in English language, there are multiple ways of saying the same thing. It's how we say it, as well as the expectations that are perceived there, as well as the environment or circumstances behind it. So I think a lot of people don't really do that. They think they mistake honesty for being brutal, and being too forward.
Yeah, in fact, actually, that's how we ended up writing, and I ended up writing the books, because, Ebong, to your point, sometimes people say, well, why do you have to write books on it? Why do you have to lecture it on it? And it's exactly what you just said, because there's a lot of different ways to say it. But the key is to be upfront, but how do you do it? And I found there's two keys that are very important. One is, how do you bring up the issue, but then how do you get it resolved? Because if you ever had somebody say, well, I'm going to be honest with you, and they just dump all over you and say all the negative stuff, but then you're like, well, where do you go? Where do you want to go with this? And sometimes you say to somebody, well, what do you want? How do we resolve it? And they'll go, well, I don't know.
Right.
And you're like, well, thanks a lot. That was really helpful. I love that honesty. So it's got to happen in both ways. We got to be able to learn how to bring it up, but also strategies and techniques about how to get it resolved.
Right.
Well, do you have one of those strategies to end us with? Can you tell us maybe one of the main things you want us to learn from this book, Honesty Sells?
Well, there's many strategies, but one of the most important things is to look at what's in it for the other person when we're trying to get it resolved. So if we're going to bring up an issue, what's in it for other people? And there are actually 7 drivers of human behavior. And if they email me, I can actually give them in much more detail, or if we have time to go through it.
Give us the number
we can.
1.
Well, one of them is money, and another 2 big driver is time. That is one of the things that we all are motivated by, money and time. And also security,
that's so true.
making a difference, enjoyment. There's a lot of drivers. There's 7 big ones, but the key is, whenever we're bringing up something, is to think what's in it for the other person and why would they want to hear it, and then work on how to get it resolved.
Great.
Well, unfortunately, although time is one of those, we've run out of it. But we really enjoyed speaking with you, and we certainly have learned a lot. And I guess we're going to have to read Honesty Sells to find out why honesty really does sell. Thanks so much for being with us, Stephen.
Thank you for having me.
And as always, thank you for being with us here on this episode of The District Dish.